Bring this meeting to order. Welcome to the April 6th meeting of the Rutherford County School Board. It's a board honor tonight to have Miss Basketball for TSSAA, Crystal Dangerfield, and TSSAA State Champion Wrestler Nick Boykin leading our pledge tonight. Ms. Dangerfield, Mr. Boykin, thank you, and of course we'll be honoring you here in just a little bit also. Would like to ask everyone to join the board in a moment's silence this evening. Tonight, during our moment of silence, we'd like for you to remember the family of Angela Robinson. Angela, excuse me. Angela passed away during spring break. She was a student at Oakland Middle School. Also remember the family of Clifford Brothers, who passed away recently. Mr. Brothers was a retired Rutherford County employee. He served as a principal and the superintendent for our county schools. So if you'll join the board in a moment of silence. Thank you. We met, of course, in work session last evening and covered a lot of topics and quite a bit of discussion. We may have some more this evening. First, we'll approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Chairman Hodge, Ms. Moore.
Mr. Blair,
Yes, sir.
on the agenda, I would ask for unanimous consent on a slight modification. There's a subcommittee that Mr. Odom and Ms. Barnes and I have discussed, and I'd like to talk about that at your discretion as to where to place it.
Okay. If it's okay with the board, we'll put it between 10 and 11. How would that okay with the board? Okay.
Thank you very much.
So you may have to remind me. I'll make a note.
Okay.
And we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Young
Second.
and Mr. Holliday. Additions, discussions. Again, we had quite a bit last evening. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any visitors, Ms. Michael? Okay. Mr. Odom, this is probably one of the most fun things we get
It's
to
the
do.
recognition.
Number 7.
It is. Ms. Dangerfield, would you come to the mic, please? And the reason we ask you to do that is so that you can be heard and you can go back and watch yourself on television, which you may get a lot to do anyway in the future. Of course, this is Crystal Dangerfield. She was Miss TSSAA Miss Basketball this year. She has signed with UConn. You had to love that game last night.
I did.
I enjoyed it too, actually. 4 years in a row, they've set some kind of a record. You're definitely have signed up with the most elite girls team right now in the United States. Tell us a little bit about your experience at basketball, for the last few years. What are your feelings about it?
I'll start with the most recent one with the McDonald's All-American game. That was probably an experience I've never had. I played with the USA basketball teams for 2 years, and just the atmosphere that surrounded the McDonald's All-American games, going to the Ronald McDonald House, being with the kids, it was just special. And then just the 4 years at Blackman High School, just something I won't ever forget.
What will you major in also while you're at UConn? Have you made selections of other things too on the academic side?
I have business or law, or I may put them together for business law.
A lot of times we see the athletes go for early admissions or anything. Will you spend the summer here locally, or what are your plans?
I actually leave 8 days after graduation, and I start class May 30th.
I was expecting as much. That's great.
Well, the other neat thing, as I was telling you before, the meeting, is that, Rutherford County is a large community, and of course, all of our schools are very competitive. We're all so very proud of your accomplishment, your effort, and your success, and I'm sure we will all be watching you as you progress, and we'll say, well, we got to hang out with her one night, but thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, anybody?
Well, I just wanted to say that having always been a UT women's basketball fan, and not a big fan of UConn, I think I may have to change that now. So we are very, very proud of you, and thank you for representing our community like you do, and we'll look forward to watching you play in those college games.
Thank you.
I know you're not going to say it, but I believe counting 7th and 8th grade in your high school years, and Coach Jackson sitting right here, I believe you were a member of 5 county championship teams in 6 years. I believe I'm right on that. That is amazing.
It is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I asked Mr. Nick Borkin. Yes,
I
sir.
had something.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Blackman girls basketball received a Distinguished Academic Achievement Award from TSSAA for averaging 3.29 grade point average. They had 12 girls that had 3.5 or better. So not only do they excel in basketball, also in academics.
Yes, sir.
And
You're here.
that's a credit to the Coach Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. You're going to have to get my attention. I apologize.
That's okay.
Mr. Borkin, would you come up? This is Nick Borkin, Riverdale High School, TSSAA state champion wrestler. And how many years have you been state champion now? This is not your first rodeo this year.
No, sir. I've had multiple in elementary and middle school, so around my 6th or 7th state title.
When you can't remember how many state titles you got. Well, tell us a little bit about your experience and your time, again, at Riverdale and all, how you kind of reflect back on it now that you're getting out shortly.
Yes, sir. I still have one more year at Riverdale, which I'm still deciding on what to do next year. But just being at Riverdale is just a fun experience with all the sports and the people I'm with on my wrestling team and being around them.
Are you going to share your skills and your abilities with maybe some younger wrestlers coming up? Because that's a lot of talent, and it'd be a great opportunity that a lot of people would like to learn from you, put it that way.
Yes, sir. I've tried to get with my brother so we can work some camps, but there's rules with the NCAA and TSSAA with running camps with how young I am. So I'm trying, but I'm showing most of them to my team so they can learn off of it.
Have you invented your own move?
I haven't yet.
Is it in the works?
It is, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Will it be called the Boykin, or?
Yes, sir, it's usually named after first.
Okay.
Neat.
We have just a problem, it's not a problem really, but we talk about Riverdale High School, which is fine, or Blackman High School, which is fine, but the communities and the taxpayers themselves and this board and plenty of other people provide some great introductory programs in middle school. Blackman Middle in Ms. Dangersfield case, you were, I believe, were Christiana
Yes, sir.
Middle. And you really started there, didn't you? And right before that, in wrestling.
Yes, sir. I've been wrestling since I was 4, so I've been with great people, great community that support me.
Again, this county community is very proud of you and your success, and we'll continue to watch your success, and maybe you and Ms. Dangerfield can compete to see who's the most successful. So, very proud.
Just great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, this is fun.
It is fun.
Number 8.
Number 8 is under facilities. Our first one is 8A. It's geotechnical consulting for John Coleman School and Roy Waldron School. Additions, and the Rutherford County Schools Engineering and Construction Department is not going to renew the contract for geotechnical consulting with Mr. Charles Irwin. The balance of the purchase order is approximately $45,000. Mr. Ed Seiler, who has worked with the engineering department in the past, will be used to complete geotechnical consulting on the John Coleman School and Roy Waldron addition. The motion is recommend approval. The motion to award the contract for the balance of the geotechnical inspections and consulting for John Coleman School and Roy Waldron School to Ed Seiler.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Hodge, and was that you, Mr. Estes? Further discussion?
I thought it was notable last evening, as Mr. Clardy explained to us, that Mr. Seiler's health has improved since this was first bid out, and he's been a dependable partner for the county, and we're happy to have his input on this process.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. B.
B is geotechnical exploration and consulting services for Smyrna Middle School addition and the David Urey addition. Collier Engineering Company has submitted a proposal for geotechnical exploration and consulting services for design information related to Smyrna Middle School addition and David Urey addition. The purpose of these services is to develop geotechnical parameters for earthwork and design foundations, slabs, and pavements. The cost for these services at David Urey is $4,450, and for Smyrna Middle School, $8,975, at a total of $13,425. This is a professional service. Recommend approval. The motion to approve Collier Engineering Company for geotechnical exploration and consulting for David Urey addition and Smyrna Middle School addition at a total cost of $13,425.
So moved.
Holliday? Second. And Mr. Young? Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And
See,
C.
we did last night, unless
Yeah,
members want to discuss further thoughts.
Further thoughts on C? Of course, we had lively discussion on that last night. Number 9.
And this is information only. We're working on getting them in when we can. It'll be for the next meeting, we think, Ms. Michaels, I think so. We're very happy, and we'll get a chance to give them some recognition twice then. The Technology Department would like to recognize State Farm in Murfreesboro and thank them for their donation of 300 LCD monitors to various schools throughout Rutherford County. These monitors are replacing outdated CRT monitors at these schools. And we talked last night about 21-inch monitors that sell over $200 a piece, so it's a good financial benefit and resource for Rutherford County Schools. It's actually a larger monitor, and we usually purchase 17-inch monitors, so those receiving these have a very nice monitor.
This is certainly not the only thing that State Farm does for the system, and I know that they participate in driver's education training and activities like that, but we certainly appreciate this as well.
With the Chamber of Commerce and the Business and Education Partnership is part of that summer program. They've sponsored that for a number of years also. The business camp that they do.
We want to encourage them to continue to assist us.
They're great partners.
They are great partners. All right. Number 10, of course, we did that last night also. Further discussions or questions for Mr. Sandvik? Mr. Holliday, we're going to move to your subject.
Thank you. We have in this year's 16-17 budget that we're considering a part-time position for a Director of Fine Arts at the central office, and as we continue through that budgetary process, I felt that it looked favorable enough to pursue a little bit of a job description discussion along those lines. I had a conversation with Mr. Tim Tackett, who currently serves as our countywide athletic director, and his efforts there are a little bit inspiring to this position that would serve as a fine arts advocate here at the central office. The benefits of this position are better relations with our booster organizations that support the fine arts throughout the county, coordinated efforts both in tying curriculum into the activities and extracurricular participation that the students are involved in, being able to track those graduation rates that we enjoy in programs like the ROTC and career and technical education, where we see that with participation in these type of programs, we see a greater buy-in by the students and more commitment toward academic achievement and graduation. And then finally, being able to ensure that we have a continuation of programs where we might start a drama program in elementary and then find that there's not an opportunity in middle or high school, or we might have a program in middle school but it's not there with an elementary program that feeds into it or something of that nature. This is a position that is along the lines of those characteristics that will help us move from thinking of ourselves as one of the top 3 or 4 systems in the state and continue our progress toward being a top 20 system in the nation. This is a characteristic of those type of systems, and one that I think is appropriate. So in that vein, I would ask the board's approval for a subcommittee that would work on fleshing out a job description and look specifically at, is this a 60-day contract position, 120-day contract position, exactly what the time requirements would be, and then also what that job description would be. Mr. Tackett and I had candid conversations about participation and evaluation, as the arts classrooms are dramatically different than, say, a chemistry classroom or a mathematics classroom, and then also the consultation from the central office about potential hiring decisions as principals are interviewing for additional roles in the arts. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone that has a special perspective. Mr. Tackett has served in that way from the athletic perspective, and we would kind of consider that, at least in this subcommittee, as one of the potential characteristics for this position. For all those reasons, again, I ask for the board's approval for a subcommittee that would explore this and bring a report back.
Mr. Odom, you did
I think we need to write a job description. You have a lot of passion for that, and we can find some other people, because this is one of our budget items, if it makes it through the budget and all too. But before you post it, we do have to develop the job description of expectations for this. People applying for it will want to know what the expectations and all happens to be, and it's a win-win to do this, in my opinion. It's just working ahead to see what we have.
Board, unless there is an objection, we'll let Mr. Holliday pick his poison and chair this committee. And if there's another board member that would like to participate, as we did on the facilities, and but Mr. Holliday and Mr. Odom will get together and finalize the rest of the committee. That's I have this board to do so. Is there another board member that would want to be a part of that committee?
Since I've written a few job descriptions in my day, Holiday will have me, I'd be happy to help with that.
Ms. Moore, you're added to the group. So, but Mr. Holliday, if you'll get with Mr. Odom and y'all select your committee members, and the board looks forward to the final report in the next few weeks.
I would think so.
I think so.
And Mr. Wilson, we'll make sure you and the news media know when to meet, since it's two board members together, so we'll do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holliday.
Thank you.
Chairman Hodge, anything from the legislature?
Nothing new.
It's still sitting on the clerk's table.
Said last night, let's hope it stays there.
Yes, sir. Stay. Okay. Mr. Holliday, Federal Relations?
Last night, I indicated that we would forward the dear colleague letter that the Department of Education had put out, and if board members had the chance to review that. In essence, I found that the idea there was that Title I funds would continue to be used as an accentuation of the academic program in those places where we statistically would expect to find challenges with impoverished communities, and continue to add to the academic program. I saw in that reading that what they wanted to guard against was a state or local education association to underfund in anticipation of those Title I fundings creating equity. We always want to make sure that the Title I funds are over and above an equitable platform that's already in place. So,
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Holliday?
There's a comparability requirement and a supplant. You cannot supplant existing funds. So that's been in place for quite some time. And we, Ms. Wise, Mr. Sandvig, have to go through that process of checking that each year when we make application for Title I monies for a number of years now. So they kind of reinforce the same thing they've done for in the past. Maybe more details later, but they did.
And this board continues to be grateful to you, Chairman Hodge, and Mr. Holliday, for your extra effort in keeping us in tune with our state and federal legislature. So again, thank you for your effort. General discussion, anything tonight?
It worries me that our county court clerk is here tonight. I want to recognize her. I'm afraid that my license plate perhaps has expired. Ms. Cowell, it's nice to see you. And delighted that you're with us. And it's Ms. Morris whose license plate has expired. It's not me.
I've found in recent weeks there's been some press coverage about background checks, and I have to admit that I did ask these questions in advance of Ms. Barnes before I'm going to ask them publicly. But if you didn't notice, the Tennessean has spent some time reporting on a characteristic that if background checks and references are not carefully examined, then there's the potential for educators that may have been dismissed at some other school system or resigned under cloudy circumstances to find their way back into a classroom. And those news articles have been out there. And so in an effort to reassure the public and take note of this, Ms. Barnes, if you'll punch your microphone, I'm going to ask you a couple of, we conduct background checks on all of our employees.
We do on all of our employees, and they are not allowed to begin work until those background checks have cleared.
And do we also check the references that they offer us and document those checks of the references?
We do have documented references on all employees, multiple references on all employees with a specific set of questions that are asked of each reference.
The specific questions sometimes are very, very important because sometimes the yes or the no's can kind of not fully answer what we need to ask. And so we have a specific set of questions that we ask and we document the answers to those.
We do. And these questions were developed several years ago, and multiple school systems across the state of Tennessee use these questions, so we're relatively consistent.
And yet, in spite of all of those things, sometimes things can happen, but have we ever had a problem with a situation where we discovered a circumstance post-hiring where we said, oh my goodness, we've made a mistake?
We have to rely on the references to give us accurate information. So if we don't receive that information, of course, we may find things later. But that's very seldom that it happens, and if it comes up, we're quick to make those corrections.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
There's another thing too. The applicant also has a question to state whether they've been arrested and before. And if we, if you're fraudulent in that, then that can be immediate dismissal. Ms. Gladnell can tell you that. And we check those sort of things to see if that matches up, with what they're saying.
Excellent.
And we also background check and fingerprint volunteer coaches too. So anybody that has access to our students are checked thoroughly. So okay. Again, we had a very long work session and quite a bit of discussion last night. Anybody have anything else, Mr. Odom? Do you have anything?
I went to the testing meeting today.
Oh, okay.
Would you like the 306-page version or the
2-page version?
It was 306 pages. Mr. Zago, myself,
Let's have the good news.
Mr. Kubley and Ms. Bogle, elementary coordinator, did go down today. So I'll give you the shortened version, okay? Kind of what we picked up maybe today. Yeah, I think it's official now. I've been saying I didn't see how they could, but quick scores are the scores that come back under the law, which said that it had to be included in grades 3 through 12. If it's in a tested subject, we had to include it in the second semester final grade for the student. And they passed the law last year, and the legislature said if it did not come back within the last 5 days, before the last 5 days of schools, you did, as a district, did not have to include them. They told us today it would be at least June before it came. So you as parents and everybody else can say, we will be out of school before the state tends to send any quick scores back. So that's a relief to everybody, I think, involved in that. Another change that we learned today, they are going to move some hand-scored items on Part 2. Typically, which we did not know that prior to that, because we thought it was all bubble and multiple choice. That's this year. There'll be some hand-scored. But it usually is a question like, they look at some numbers or something, say, can you write an equation for this, or write this in another way? If you had a fraction, 1/2 would be 2/4, would be 3/6. Are there other ways you could write it? So multiple correct answers or something could be in that. So we did not know that there would be some of those. I might say also to you that slated for next week on the state board agenda is approval of the new Tennessee standards for English language arts and math. And they were up for review last year. People made comments online, that sort of thing. So those new standards, and you can read those standards typically if you go to Tennessee State Board of Education, you look at their agenda, like our agenda, it will be a tab or an attachment, just like our items are, if you'd like to to look at that very often. I haven't looked to see specifically for these, but typically they're there. They'll really not be tested until 17, 18. So the 16, 17 test for next year will be very similar to what we're talking about right now, but with those new standards. The other thing, talking about math, I mentioned this last night and they reiterated again today. There will not be a part 1 to the math test next year in any of the elementary or up through high school. Unless something changes, no more part 1s. It'll all be done near the end of the year. They said that they really, one of the things they learned this year, and I don't know if that's an indication that the early results on the math didn't look as good as they thought or what, but they realized that some of the concepts, especially the application of the concepts, really took longer to develop than test them in February. So all of that will be tested again in math in the last test, which is usually late April, again for your elementary schools or through 8th grade, and your end-of-course test for high school. So math will be moved there. That will leave, the only thing that will be left really then is English language arts in the February test in the part 1, and social studies will be left in that. Science will not be that at that time. English language arts will have parts 1 and 2. Again, the writing, the reason for doing this is they want to build an assessment for writing in their English language arts assessment, and it will consist of a couple of parts. They change it from just the writing that students would again read a document or paragraph like I mentioned last night, and then they answer some multiple choice questions on it. Their idea, they've found that if students have to then respond, and they're really comprehensive questions about the document they've read. If you were reading some kind of a historical document of the United States and you had to answer 6 or 8 multiple choice questions on it, they said that they're finding that when you do this, that it makes the kid begin to internalize more about the paragraph, what it says, that the writing part actually comes out better because they've had to do a little bit more time thinking about it, organizing thoughts about key areas and that sort of thing. That sounded pretty good to me in that. Social studies assessments, basically they told us they're currently reviewing the social studies assessment structure, and that would be the structure that they used this year. This is not content for social studies, this is structure. And when we talk about structure, we're talking about, do we need more or less constructed response? Do we need more or less multiple choice structure in the test? But it's not standards that they're reviewing. That standards review is open right now. You know, that they can go, science and social studies standards on the website, parents, students, teachers were encouraged to go in, and then they outline for us in part of this 306-page thing about committees from standards review, all these other committees that will be looking at the standards, and then they will be brought back to the state board for approval, just like they're doing math and English language arts. The last step is a state board approval. Science next year, there'll be no changes because they do not have new standards. We did have some new social studies standards or revisited social studies standards, but no changes in science. So I found it really interesting. And I said to one of the people that's doing the, in charge of it there, that they're going to be doing this again in 2 years, because we're going to have all new standards in place for 17 or 18. You're going to have new science, new social studies. The state board's going to improve in these English language arts and these math. So this process is going to be done again. I think we made the comment last night, we'd like to have 2 years of the same, but I didn't hear that today, you know, in this meeting. That what the good news is, the testing time is reduced next year. And depending upon your grade level and the subject, I looked at and scanned it. I have a copy of it by grade, by subject. But it ranged anywhere from 25 minutes to 70 minutes per subject. The biggest reductions were coming in high school testing of how long a time students would have to test. Now, there still is quite a bit of testing time involved overall. For example, in grades 3 through 5 in math, it was like 115 minutes total. 6-8 math, 125 minutes total. High school, 145 minutes total. But that number actually reflects a reduction from where we were this year. So the tests were very, very long this year. And I think you heard that from a lot of people in the states heard that, so they're going to do something else about it. So, and another thing, that they gave us some more specific dates today. They're testing reports that come back for students, the parents' copies that comes back and does a report. The school's reports and the district's reports will not be back until October of 2016. So you're not going to get anything that's going to be these reports because they don't have cut scores. All that's got to be done post-testing this summer. What is kind of there'll be 4 levels, some proficiency level, a tag kind of to that. But all of that has to be designed. And it was interesting to see how they did that. They bring in teams of teachers. Typically, all committees required 2 higher education people involved, state people, and all. So they sit down and look at these. Say you've got 50 test questions. They take then and rank the 50 test questions from easiest test question to the most difficult test question. There's people that serve on the committee. Some of the committees up to 20 people or so. So they rank them. Then they have to go through and say, looking at the definition of what it takes to have a proficient level, which one of these questions at what level does the kids start illustrating proficiency? And that becomes your cut. That's how they do a cut. And then at what level would you have to be for that to be an advanced score? So the process is lengthy and quite involved, and the psychometrics dealing with that is involved. But anyway, next year's test is very similar to this year's test, but no math in the middle of the year, and test will be shorter and not quite as much writing unless they have to do a field test item. Other questions? That's the quick version of, we stayed from 9 o'clock till about 3 o'clock, but that's the quick 5-minute version maybe.
Mr. Odom, was there conversation about Measurement Inc. and plans for that relationship?
Not a lot of discussion with that because they're in discussion with them. I would be, again, I mentioned last night, Measurement Inc., they contract with Measurement Inc. after leaving Pearson to create test questions. I would say, Don Odom's opinion, and that's all you can take it, that you're probably going to be through Measurement Inc., certainly we know for the rest of this year and at least next year. Would they change again when we get new standard for 17 or 18? I think that door is open. I just don't know. But I'm pretty sure next year would be Measurement Inc. We did not get a definitive thing of whether it would be online or it would be paper and pencil. You pretty well know science is going to be paper and pencil. We don't have new standards. We don't have online things written for that. But just listening to them, they were talking about protocols for calculators and stuff like that. So it sounds like they're opening the door for both online again and also opening the door for paper and pencil again, just from some of the things that they said. Long term, they're going to go again because of cost. It's about half the cost per pupil per test, you know, in an online version versus paper pencil because you have to scan them, score them, print the paper and pencil and that sort of thing. So the future for testing will be online all over the country. But my guess is Measurement Inc. next year. That's Don Odom's opinion. They didn't say that specifically.
Yes. Failed to recognize our president of our Education Association, Mr. Gifford. Welcome. And our past president, Ms. Mitchell. Pleased to have both of y'all with us this evening also. And storm has kicked up pretty well, Ms. Michaels. We may be here a while, so, but maybe not in session. So. Anybody else? Ms. Michaels, when we're together again?
Budget.
All righty, well, be safe out there, because it looks pretty rough from here, so it's coming down pretty good, so. We don't have anything else, we stand adjourned.